Welcome to the Publishing Performance Show, the podcast that helps self-published authors turn their passion into a profit. Now, I'm your host, Teddy Smith, and if you're serious about building a sustainable business, then you're in the right place. Every week, I sit down with successful authors, industry experts, and publishing professionals who share their exact strategies they use right now to how they've grown their business, grow their readership, increase their book sales, and essentially to make a bit more money. Now, whether you're just starting out or you're looking to scale your existing publishing business, you'll walk away from every episode with actionable insights you can implement immediately. Now, if you're new here, it would really help me out if you could subscribe either on Apple or Spotify or YouTube or wherever you are. Just simply hit the subscribe button. It really helps the show to get more reach, which means we can get better guests for you and we can help you out in more ways. All right, let's dive into this episode. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. Today I'm really happy to be joined by Nicholas Keating-Casbarro, who is an author and also the founder of the Vitilarium Universe. So welcome to the show, Nicholas.
Thanks for having me, Teddy.
No problem. I mean, we've chatted so much during our pre-calls that I feel like we're going to have to get all of those conversations out because it's been, I feel like we've really vibed together, which has been quite cool. So why don't you tell us a bit about like the Vitilarium world? Give us a bit of information about the whole universe.
Yeah, sure. So the Vitilarium Universe follows humanity after we become multi-planetary. And it's a far future spacefaring civilization that we become. The idea is that we start kind of here on Earth where we are now. But the discovery of an exotic material, a new exotic material, one not native to Earth, unlike anything we've ever seen before, leads to the golden age of space exploration. And that's because that material ends up acting like the exotic material that would be used as fuel for an Alcubierre drive. And for those out there who don't know what an Alcubierre drive is, physicist Miguel Alcubierre posited in the 90s in a paper that he wrote that there is a workaround to to the universal speed limit, which is the speed of light. And so he said, basically, we could travel faster than the speed of light if we were able to condense space in front of us and elongate it behind us, creating almost like an element where, have you ever been on one of those walkways in the airport where the walkway is moving?
Yeah. And then underneath you about the town that you're visiting.
Yeah. So if you, so technically the space is shortening in front of you and getting longer behind you because It's kind of coming up and around, right? So it'd be almost like an engine that could create that type of effect, but with space itself. So we colonize new planets, we explore the cosmos, and the population booms. And so that we explore all sorts of different concepts in the Vitilarium universe. It is primarily a human story, so we're looking at things like government structure, social structure, corruption, and as well as a lot of really cool technology.
I think you kind of just answered it, but when the people are exploring the rest of the universe, do they come across different types of aliens and things like that as well, or is it mostly humans just exploring?
So
or is that a secret?
It's not a super secret. If you've read the book, you kind of find out at the end that there is something going on and we are being watched in some way. I allude to it. I don't define it just yet, although I have it very clearly defined in my head. And you'll learn a lot more about it in book 2, which will be coming out early next year.
Oh, amazing.
But one of the interesting things is when you kind of get dropped into the 7th colonized planet, which is the last planet that has been colonized in a very long time, what they find is they find the ruins of a very seemingly advanced ancient civilization that for some reason just disappeared. We don't know where they are, but their structures are still there and it leaves a lot of interesting questions. And so that was something that I'm really fascinated by, like ancient civilizations and mythology and a lot of these things. And I try and weave some of those interests into the story itself because that's what's fascinating to me. And that makes the writing flow very easily. Because if you're writing about what you like and what fascinates you, it certainly staves off the procrastination a little bit. A little bit.
When you were researching, did you look into things like conspiracy theories as well? Like, there's that one at the moment with the tunnels under the pyramid and all that sort of thing. Did that inspire you? Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. You got it. Well, as a fiction author, especially when you're writing a story this kind of grand. Like I have 7 books planned. So that's a lot of content. You have to ask a lot of what if questions, especially when you start getting into kind of the dystopian elements of a potential future civilization. You got to go down, you got to ask some what if questions. What if that was the case? What would that lead to? How would a government have to cover up something like that? Or how would, what if we are being watched, in some way, and there are a few people who know about it. How would they keep that a secret? There's, and that can be fun, and it can also be exhausting at the same time, because, you go down some really interesting rabbit holes. But I try and take a good mix of, obviously hard sci-fi. I try and base everything in either current physics theory or prospective physics theory, just to try and make sure that I'm writing accurately. So I do read, scientific papers. I read, physics papers, publications, everything like that. And then, I mix in a good amount of the what if stuff. Like let's dive down some conspiracy rabbit holes and see what people really think is going on. And, and then I try and for instance, the name of the 7th planet is Diorum, and Diorum in Latin means of the gods. And they named it that because of the ruins that they found. Right. Because it's like a big hovering question in the air that everyone seems to be kind of avoiding in normal society. And then, just character focused stuff. I try and base a number of the characters on people I know in real life, because I feel like that adds an extra breath of life into the character.
Yeah, definitely. I think this kind of leads on to the main thing I wanted to talk about with you today, which is that world building, because already just from the little bit we've talked about now, you can see how the world has got quite big, and there's lots of different moving parts, like the science, like the way that people move around. There's the characters, there's everything's going on. And that's kind of quite typical of this fantasy sort of sci-fi-ish type books. And that world building process is a question that I get asked about all the time from people who are listening to my podcast. So what I wanted to sort of start with was, when you're creating the world or the universe of Vitilarium, where did you begin with the the world building? Did you have a particular structure that you followed in order to build that world out?
It's funny. I literally just brought up my entire storyboard as you were asking that question, because I started with the themes I wanted to write about.
So what are the themes?
So again, this is very much, despite the fact that it is sci-fi, I've been a sci-fi fan my whole life, so it made sense for me to write that. I wanted to talk, it's a human story, right? Who's reading it? A person. Yeah. So I wanted to make it character focused, but the themes are important for kind of creating the foundation for, I feel like, where the story could go, what the elements are going to be that you're going to discuss. There's always some kind of, I find the sci-fi that I enjoy the most is one with some kind of a philosophical tone underneath. Not overt, because that can get a little, preachy, but just I feel like sci-fi is a good way for us to explore different ways humanity can screw it all up and potentially write our way out of it too, if it ever came to that. So I wanted to cover kind of the concept of overreaching power. I wanted to discuss what a civilization would look like in the future if we did have these sort of capabilities, if we were, living on 7 different planets in the known galaxy. What I wanted to explore different types of human personalities and the type of people that are driven to power or maybe attracted to power, the type of people who maybe aren't so. And I wanted to also explore kind of the nature of circumstances and how they can force someone to basically rediscover purpose, maybe push them in a direction they weren't expecting to go.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty relevant considering I never thought I would write a book. That certainly kind of came out of left field for me. But,
so with these characters you're talking about now, did you write down questions to ask yourself, like, what would this character do? Or did you just say, I need a good guy, I need a bad guy, I need like the government? Like, how did you say, okay, these are the sort of characters I'm going to need? Just a quick shout out to all the romance authors out there. Now, if you're tired of shouting into the void every time you launch a brand new romance book, then let myromancereads.com do the shouting for you. They have a list of over 18,000 romance readers who love getting books when they're on discounts or on the free promotion. And it goes into their inbox every single day. It's got an amazing open rate, and every promotion gets on average over 600 clicks. That's a lot of new readers for your new series of romance books. So head to myromancereads.com where you can sign up today.
So, I mean, you got to have a protagonist, you got to have an antagonist, and there's probably going to be some supporting protagonists and antagonists depending upon the type of story that you're writing. For me, I'm writing multi-narrative, kind of a large multi-narrative storyline. So there's a number of characters, and when you first meet them, you're not always kind of sure who they're going to be or what they're going to be, what force they're going to be kind of exemplifying in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe with the exception of the protagonist. I think I make that pretty clear, although he is very morally gray when we first meet him.
Okay.
So I started with the themes. I then went to who are if we have, these are the things I want to talk about. I actually went to the factions first. So let's create a little bit of a structure for certain characters to kind of fall under. So I created a government for the planet. It's called the Coalition for Prosperity, which as far as totalitarian governments go, I'm sure you can imagine they're really not all about prosperity, at least not for everyone.
I really like
maybe
that
for themselves. And so we've got them. And then I wanted the protagonist to be kind of a loner. And so I set up a lot of other factions that could be involved just based on what exists now today. There are gangs that operate. There are militias that operate. There are other people within, there are factions even within a government oftentimes, so to speak. And so I ended up kind of separating out different government members into where they're going to kind of fall on the morality spectrum, different people where they're going to fall in terms of throughout the kind of gritty world, the gritty future that you end up exploring. And I made a religion. Religion is a prevalent thing now. Who's to say it won't be in the future, right? Yeah. It may look different, but, I'm sure that, anyone who, is prone to, the running a religion type is going to find a way to implement that in some way as we begin to expand further out.
Yeah.
And so what does religion look like in the future? I had to write the tenets of a religion and create characters based off that. That was interesting. I'm thinking about putting a little notation at the front of my book that no one is ever allowed to turn this into a religion, even after I die.
Yeah. A disclaimer, the religion in this is entirely false.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
Unless I'm the king,
But that was actually it turned out to be a really cool motive because I was able to funnel a lot of the philosophical elements that I discuss through that, I guess, entity, which became very helpful as the story continued to progress and continues to progress.
When you were learning about the world building, did you have a structure that you wanted to follow? Like, was there a book or was there a course or was there something that you took or read that helped you to ask the right questions in order to build that world out? Or was it a case of, I've got this idea, I'm just going to run with it and see what happens?
I just ran with it.
Yeah.
It probably should have. It may have shortened my learning curve a little bit, but at the same time, I realized that if I kept asking questions of myself, every time I answered those questions, it brought up new ones.
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, if I'm defining this, well, then that needs to be defined too. Well, let's define it. Let's come up with a way to make it all mesh. And so it went from the themes to the factions to then the characters. And each character is, if we want them to be a well-rounded character and we want their personality, their profession, their mannerisms, all these things to make sense, well, we got to give them a backstory. So let's give them a short backstory. Let's talk about a little bit of what they exemplify as far as what their character stands for in general and in the scope of the story. What do they represent? And then, all right, we've got 7 planets. What do those planets look like? How many moons do they have? What's the government structure look like there? What's the social structure look like there in response to that? What are their exports due to, different conditions on the planet? And like I said, the more I continued to ask questions, the more I filled up this thing, and it just became my complete story guide, literally from front to back.
What does that story guide look like now?
So the story guide it's like I don't even know how many tabs it has now, but it's in Excel. Yeah. I use Excel. It's just always been kind of the easiest method for me to organize my thoughts and separate out different aspects of whatever it is I'm working on. And so that's what I did. And so I have this, however many tab monstrosity of an Excel document that's got everything from descriptions to, character backstories to chapter breakdowns, notes on future books and future segments of the story, reference images. That was a big thing. One of the things that I wanted to give the character was a little bit of like a survivalist type of,
okay,
we'll call it skill. Because that would allow me to really show like how much of a kind of a badass that he is, to be frank. And so, all right, well, if he's a survivalist, well, what's he dealing with out on the planet where he's doing work? He's basically doing freelance work for basically odd jobs for local gangs when you first meet him as an adult. And the reason why they contract with him is because he knows how to survive outside of the walls of the mega city in which 99.999% of the population lives. So the rest of the planet is entirely untamed and pretty brutal. It's a vicious planet. There are a number of just deadly flora and fauna out there. And he is a little bit of a savant when it comes to just knowing all of these types of animals, knowing all of these life forms and how to basically survive and make a living through that. And that allowed me to craft a character that was not only pretty rugged, but pretty talented in the way of violence as well. That's the morally gray part I mentioned earlier.
When you've got this huge spreadsheet of all of this stuff that, the worlds, the government, all the characters, all that sort of thing, when it comes to writing it, do you feel like you have to sort of go back over each chapter just to check each part as you're writing? Do you have to sort of self-edit as you're going?
I do. That's something that I definitely started early on, and I'm glad I did, because there are, and as I'm realizing now, like, as I'm continuing to write more books, I'm only adding to that, massive storyboard and all of the different lore that goes into the story. So I actually have not only the storyboard, but a PDF of book 1 open so I can command find and go, shit, was that scar on the left side of his shoulder or the right side of his shoulder? Like little things like that for continuity. If you miss those, it can pull a reader out, especially if, they become a fan of the series and they're like, wait a minute, he did that wrong. That'll pull you right out of the story, and you don't want that to happen. Engagement is huge. And then my goal was to create kind of an immersive experience with this series. So
yeah, even the first Harry Potter had like these mistakes in it, and they had to reprint the whole series. So those first ones with the spelling mistakes, and they're like, well, there's like a potion mistake. They're worth loads of money now.
Yeah, yeah. See, and it happens when you're writing something this involved. There's always the potential for that, and if you start early in terms of making sure that I do a couple of rounds of self-editing just by myself before it even goes to my real editor. I start with, every time I write a chapter, I write the name of the next chapter, the first paragraph, and then I go back and just so I kind of remember where I wanted to start the chapter.
Yeah.
Then I go back and I do a run through of the previous chapter I just wrote. And that's just kind of the nuts and bolts. Then when I'm done, I do one full read through of the entire book and I look for, am I getting repetitive with this stuff? Is my spelling atrocious? And it can be. And my commas are never in the right place, I assure you. And I try and get that stuff out of the way. And then I go back and I go, okay, are there any areas where I need to improve? Are there any plot holes? Are there any mistakes in terms of the little things like I mentioned? And then I'm like, okay, this is a solid, kind of game ready first draft. And then we go from there.
Well, because you said you're talking about self-editing, then it goes to an editor. How do you give all this information to the editor to make sure that they know like which parts to edit correctly? Or do you give them your Bible and say, can you go through this first?
I refrain from giving the Bible out, or I have an abridged version of it that takes out a lot of the stuff as far as like notes on future books that are in very, very rough state, but still capture a lot of the ideas I want to encompass. I may provide that. I may, have a little bit of a meeting with them beforehand and like explain certain elements. My editor's name is John Smith. It's the most generic name on the planet, but he's a phenomenal editor. And he caught a few really interesting things as far as like, he was like, this character, this protagonist of yours, he does something later in the book that's kind of seems out of character for him. Like you don't really allude to that part of him at any point throughout the book. I was like, oh, that's a good point. So he's like, you need to define his motivations a little better. And I had to go back to the drawing board and say, all right, well, where's there room for me to be able to do that? Where's there an opportunity to do that? And for this particular instance, I found a way to do that with one of my chapters was a little bit shorter than most of them. And I inserted a scene that was basically between him traveling from his house to where he was going for a mission, where it kind of showed that there's a little bit more of there is some empathy underneath the rough exterior that is, Roman Matthews, the protagonist.
Yeah.
And so, and it worked because I sent it back to him and he was like, oh, that's nice. Nicely done. And I take, he takes a very collaborative approach to the editing, which I enjoy. And so I take his word like it's gospel. And then after that, we go to the proofreading, which it gets sent to two different people. So I had two proofreaders and I went through 6 rounds of proofreading. And that's spelling, commas in the right place, all that kind of stuff. I can't tell you how many times I used the improper spelling of discreet.
You should get it tattooed on your arm, like just.
Yeah, one with an X through it, and then the real. Yeah. So that was, I mean, at that point, 6 read-throughs. I almost got tired of reading my own book.
Yeah.
So, but it's important once again to making sure that the final product is as polished and as presentable as humanly possible once you get it to market.
Yeah. Nice. Do you use any in your books? Do you use any visual tools, things like maps, timelines, family trees, or anything like that? Even if it's not necessarily reader facing, do you have anything like that so that you can understand like where everyone sits in the world?
Yes, I do. So I felt like that was important, especially given the number of moving parts that the reader is kind of getting exposed to. And so I have a map of the mega city of Kairos, and it's called Kairos. And it's gigantic. You can literally see it from outer space. It's so big.
And that's on Earth. That's the main city on Earth, is it?
Oh no, that's the main city on planet Diorum, the 7th colonized planet, which is where the majority of the story takes place. So the reader can say, oh, well, that guy, that politician, that's the governor of Libris. Okay, well, where's Libris on the map again? Okay, it helps to not only immerse the person and kind of, get them hyped up about the story, but it also helps them understand where they are. And if the reader can understand where they are, they have a perspective that helps them understand all of the things that are happening within the scope of the world you've built. So that was important to me. I had a graphic designer mock that up for me, and that is in the front of the book, as well as in book 1, there's also a page where it has the sigils of each faction. So I know before we hopped on, we had mentioned Harry Potter once or twice.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I thought of it as almost like hey, this is like a pick your own house kind of thing. This would be cool. And then you get to find out who each of those factions is as you get through the story.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was fun. Once again, I thought it was a great way to just continue to elaborate on the world that I've built.
Mm-hmm.
And I plan to have more because now at this point I have character mock-ups, basically character concepts for each of the, I would say, main and recurring characters that you see throughout the book. And I'm trying to find a way to basically insert those into the next book as well, so that people, even, readers, will have a reference to, what that character might look like.
Yeah.
I'm a little hesitant to put that in the book. I have it all on my website if anyone really wants to dive into the weeds with the world. But I also know that readers like to kind of create their own image of a character in their head while they're reading. So I don't want to tarnish that or take that away from them. And so I'm trying to find, I guess, a smart way to do that, or a smart way to continue to insert more and more content.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself falling down like a world building rabbit hole where you find yourself spending more time building the world out and then you lose focus on the story? And do you have any ways of trying to get back from that, if you do?
That usually hasn't been my problem. Usually I find that when the writing starts getting hard, either something is wrong with the direction I'm going in, or something isn't well defined enough for me to be able to imagine it. Because the way I write, I almost write it as if I'm seeing the scene in my head, like it's a movie, and I am describing it, adding the dialogue, adding different elements to allude to other things that the reader may not know is going on yet. And if I can't really see what's going on, I know either something is not well defined, or maybe there's a better way I could write this part. Or maybe I'm missing something. So it's almost like when the writing gets hard, I know that I need to go back to the drawing board, and I need to, just figure out a fix.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself having to work out ways of weaving the world into the story rather than just being like, this is the government, this is what it does, just like laying it all out? Do you have any techniques for trying to get that into the story?
Yeah. I like to do it through character dialogue a lot of the time. And I feel like that's an effective way to do it, so that you're not just kind of writing a manuscript. There are times in which I do like a little bit of almost an omniscient perspective overview of like what kind of realm they're diving into, or what part of the city this is. I'll have like a nice descriptive piece at the front of the chapter that kind of says, okay, like the reader goes, okay, I know my surroundings now. Like I know what's going on. And then, a character will start talking. But oftentimes I'll have the characters discuss different elements of what's going on that weaves in different parts of the world. And that is, I feel, a little bit more engaging at times. And I've always been a fan of like meaningful dialogue. Like I love Quentin Tarantino's movies, because he always has at least a couple like long conversations between two characters where you get out of that scene, you're like, I know who that character is and what he stands for. And I know, I can kind of see the conflict that may be building between them. And I find that to be fascinating. It's a great way to also weave in some of the philosophical elements that I want to discuss in the book, but also tell people about the world that they live in, and maybe sometimes the harsh realities that entails.
Yeah. It's so fascinating speaking, because I'm kind of working on a sort of a similar project, and I'm just looking at all of the problems I'm now going to face as I come up. And so as I'm speaking to you, I'm thinking, I should really be writing this down rather than chatting to you.
Yeah. Well, you'll have the recording, but I don't look at them as problems. I look at them as opportunities to build out and flesh out the world and make it even better. Okay. I've used different new or prospective technologies to helped me fill plot holes in the past.
Okay.
Like different ways that characters can, how is he going to get out of this? Like there's no way. Well, maybe, that's something that, maybe I could allude to something earlier and utilize that as a fix for a situation later on. It's everything's just an opportunity. There's no problems.
Yeah.
We're just having fun.
When you're, apart from your massive spreadsheet that you use, do you have any other tools that you use to keep track of everything? Like any writing tools or anything like that? Or is it literally just the spreadsheet and that's it?
I'm pretty manual when it comes to a lot of this stuff, which, and maybe that's just because there are different ways I could definitely use some of I know I've heard about a couple of really interesting tools just listening to your podcast where I could maybe improve my, my organization and things like that. But for the most part with me, it's just a spreadsheet, a Word document, and a good cup of coffee and a little bit of nicotine. That'll do it.
When I interviewed Joanna Penn on this show, she's a podcaster, quite famous self-published author, and she used a tool called Google Notebook LM, which it uses AI, but it's based on your own inputs into it. So it's not like using AI to make creative decisions for you. You put your own book in there, your manuscript, the documents you're talking about, and then you can ask questions of it. So that point that you talked about earlier, where did that guy have the scar? Was it on his left side or right side? Like you could ask it questions about your manuscripts and it will bring that back up, which that's what I'm probably going to use when I start writing. Have you had a look at that one?
So you mentioned that actually in a meeting we had a little while ago.
Yeah.
And I have since looked that up. I have not utilized it yet, but as I continue to build out the series, I think that's definitely something that I'm going to be implementing because it would just shorten it's just going to help me condense the time that it takes to, go back and check things.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I mean, that would be huge.
It's really cool. I use it for my podcast notes, like looking up, who's did I interview about this? Who's spoken about this tool? Like who have I interviewed that has mentioned fantasy? And I can then, it helps me for networking and all those sort of things. Really clever. I think that's what I'm going to use for this too.
That sounds like a really helpful tool. So consider me sold. I just need to implement now. The thing is that the reason why I feel like I haven't jumped into a lot of some of the other writing aids that I know a lot of other writers use is because my focus has been on making sure that I kind of continue to expand the series into other outlets of media as well. And I think we might have talked about this prior, but I've begun adapting the book series into a comic book series as well.
Oh, nice.
And the reason I did that is because a lot of the conventions that I'm going to, I'm doing book fairs, I'm doing all that stuff, but I'm also doing Comic-Cons because there's a lot of sci-fi crossover at Comic-Cons. The attendees who are going to these conventions, they like sci-fi too. The book has been doing great there. And if I'm going to a Comic-Con, I should probably have a comic. And that seemed also like the next logical step in terms of bringing a pictorial version of this to life. Something I could do for, it wasn't going to totally break the bank, and it would help my content basically appeal to a whole different market of, potential fans.
Do you doing the drawings yourself?
No, I am not. No, I have a very talented illustrator. His name is Francisco Nilo, and a very talented colorist who does the color and the kind of accents and everything else. His name is Chandran Panusamy.
Nice.
And then for the graphic design, for the guy who designed all the sigils, helped me build the map, helped me do the book covers, his name is Ahmed Gitar, also incredibly talented. I've lucked out in that I haven't had to go through too many 1099 folks, so contractors, to be able to find the people that really understood what I was going for. And they've just been a dream to work with. So
all the guys working
all the
for you
props to them.
Sound like they've got really good names for characters in your book as well.
You know what they do, actually. I hadn't even thought of that, but you're spot on there.
Yeah.
Maybe I ought to give them an homage.
I just wanted to finish by talking about the books a bit more, and the world as well. because we've talked a lot about the process and things like that. And I kind of want to hear a bit more about your favorite parts of the Vitilarium world that you've built. So like, which parts are your favorite? Which do you enjoy writing the most?
I know I mentioned I like writing the meaningful dialogue scenes. Those are fun for me. There's one chapter toward the end that really sums up kind of everything that has happened and everything that is about to happen. And it's just the chapter is just a really kind of a heated conversation between two people over a medical table, believe it or not. That was a fun chapter. Also the hardest chapter I had to write. That one was edited more times than I can count to make sure that aligned with the themes I was going for, that the characters' dialogue seemed true, that I was giving the right props and I had the right balance between both characters. That was a very tough chapter to write, but it was a fun one for me. I also love writing.
Sorry, I was just saying, did you know that chapter was coming before? Like, did you, like, when you started writing, were you like, this chapter's got to come at some point?
Yes, that one I did. I'd say there are certain elements of the story that are certain like major events that are hardwired into the story, but how I get to them, I try and let the writing flow.
Yeah.
So I'd say I do like a little bit of a mix of both, letting the characters lead and, having some events that happen. And oftentimes there are events that are outside of their control. And so that helps, again, in terms of making sure that it kind of feels real. But I also love writing the action scenes. That's been a lot of fun for me. I write, I don't know if have you ever read Frank Herbert's work, like Dune and the Dune series? Or
yes,
like
and I interviewed the guy, not Frank Herbert, but Kevin Anderson, who's written the follow-on books. I interviewed him on this podcast as well.
Awesome. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. I'll have to go back and listen to that one. I'd like to get inside his mind a little bit. But I write in the omniscient perspective, kind of similar to the way that Frank Herbert does. Mm-hmm. And I tried to give it a purpose. And once again, you find out what that purpose is toward the end of the book, actually at the very end of the book. But I wanted as far as the action scenes are concerned, I wanted to give the reader like an edge of your seat experience. I didn't want it. I feel like certain action scenes that I've read in other books, and, maybe I just haven't read the right books as well. This isn't a shot at anyone, so to speak, but I feel like they gloss over certain things that happen and they're not taking into account like what's going on inside the character who's in this. Like what's going through his mind? Is his heart beating through his chest? Is he, does he slip and he drops something? Is he dashing for cover? What does it feel like to have plasma charges flying over your head? And I wanted to really kind of encompass the excitement and the thrill and the fear associated with that. And so I really, really enjoyed writing the action scenes.
That's really cool.
In this book.
Yeah, I like that. Because I know a lot of people who have written books that have got like sex scenes and things like that. They've got ChatGPT to write some of the sex scenes because they're like, I don't really want to do that bit.
No, that is one thing I will say. I have never used ChatGPT to write anything. The only thing I've used AI for so far has been to help me shorten my learning curve when it comes to knowing what I don't know about certain scientific elements that I want to incorporate, because I'm not a physicist. I have a little bit of a medical background, so that kind of helped a little bit. But I wanted to, here's a scientific concept. Give me everything out there that's written about it and what a little base summary, and then I'll still go and read those publications after.
Yeah.
So that I really get the gist of it. And it's not just, what AI is kind of giving to me. I'll see what I can pull of it. Because sometimes I find, a few gems that are kind of tucked away in, the actual full paper that I'm like, I could do this. Like this, I could make it. Yeah. You pick up on little things the more you expose yourself to just new stuff.
Yeah.
So this whole process has kind of ignited like a new passion for learning with me in terms of like what my interests are. So that's been really fun.
Awesome. It's been so great talking to you. Building this world out is so fascinating. Do you have any advice that you'd give to people who were looking at building something quite complicated, like the sort of book you're talking about? Or if you could go back and change anything that way you've done, like, is there any advice around that sort of thing that you could help people with?
Yeah. I would say don't get bogged down with trying to make it perfect right from the get-go, because there's always an opportunity to go back and change things. I have done it on countless occasions throughout writing the book where, like I said, I'm coming across kind of I'm stumped situation, and I'm not really sure how to get this character out of this, or I'm not really sure how to make these events line up. And I've gone back and I've changed things in prior chapters that actually make it work because it's been alluded to before. I can find ways to say, like, without saying it, like, this might be important to remember for later on, and write it in such a way that it kind of sticks with people as they're reading. So when they get to that point and I find the fix for it, they're like, oh, that's how he did it. Like, cool. So don't worry about like making it perfect right from the get-go. You will always have opportunities to go back and fix it. Even after I first put my book on, all the platforms where it's listed now and kind of made it available for purchase, a week later, I was just reading through part of one of the books, or part of my first book as I was writing book 2. And I was like, oh, shoot, like I never put that in, or this is like, and I went back and changed it, and within a week it was fixed. And then, as a first time author, there weren't too many books that flew off the shelf just yet. There weren't too many of the erroneous copies that are out there. But like I'm saying, because I feel like that need for perfection right from the get-go can lead to paralysis, which can lead to procrastination. And I feel like that's where a lot of that comes from. But if you go into it and you're like, everything is fixable, everything is editable, everything is fluid, right from the get-go, it'll pour out of you.
And I noticed your book is with Atmosphere Press. How did you find that process of being like represented, having a publisher rather than doing it all completely self-published?
So they are an indie publisher.
Yeah.
It's a hybrid type publisher. Yeah. So essentially you cover certain costs from the get-go.
Yeah. I interviewed Nick on the show, actually. That's why I noticed it.
Oh yeah. Dr. Courtwright. Yeah. He's a nice guy. I'll tell you what, I was introduced to Atmosphere through a family friend. And I guess at the time, one of her best friends had worked at Atmosphere. And she said, look, I'll help you set up a meeting. And if they like it, great. And if not, you got more work to do. So I said, okay. And I reviewed all of the different things that they would provide in terms of a service as a publisher. And it was extensive. And I compared it with one or two other publishers that were kind of in the same boat, and they didn't even come close. So I was like, you know what, this is a good route. Let's go for it. And they did right by me. They taught me a lot of things. They once again taught me what I didn't know. They told me all the things that I need to begin marketing the book, and set me up with my editor and my proofreaders. They set me up with someone who would help me make a cover, although I ended up finding my own graphic designer for that. Just someone who was, just fitting the theme I was going for a little better. It's kind of a dark book. Like I'll acknowledge that right now. It's a wild ride, but it can get dark. So I wanted the cover to encompass that. They helped me submit for reviews. They helped me submit for awards. They taught me everything along the way as well. So basically, this is how we're doing this. This is how you would do this. And they were extremely helpful. It was overall a very, very good process.
Good. I'll have to let them know.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it's been fascinating talking to you. So if people want to find more information about you, like where's the best place to get your books or read about you or any of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, sure. So my website is vitilariumseries.com. I know Vitilarium is kind of a new bit of nomenclature I'm trying to throw out into the sphere. It's Vital, ERIUM, is Vitilariumseries.com. You can find me on pretty much any social media under the sun at Vitilarium Series. I have a Patreon. It's called Inside Vitilarium. And you can find the book on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com, booksamillion.com. The audiobook is on Amazon and Audible, and the comic books are on my website.
Amazing. Well, it's great. I mean, so thanks so much for coming on. It's been great chatting. And I'll put all the links in the show notes so that everyone can go and find the book, and we'll speak again soon.
Sounds good. Hey, it was an absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Teddy.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Publishing Performance Show. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I absolutely love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, I want to tell you about our Publishing Performance Starter Packs. These are curated episodes and collections organised by topic that makes it super easy to find the exact content you're looking for. So whether you're wanting to deep dive into marketing strategies, explore productivity techniques, or focus on any specific area of publishing, we've organised our episodes into targeted playlists just for you. And you can find these all at teddyagsmith.com. And also, whilst you're here, let me tell you about Publishing Performance. It's the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales but aren't really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books, and if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns for you, to choose your best keywords and to make adjustments in real time and to optimise them over time to save you money and to make more sales. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. You can get started with Amazon ads for free for 30 days at publishingperformance.com, and there's a link in the show notes to get that free 30 days trial.